Tonight, a deafening silence from the president's Twitter account in his waning days as commander-in-chief. Twitter, run by CEO Jack Dorsey, saying after close review of the president's recent tweets, it banned him due to the risk of further incitement of violence. Twitter specifically warning, quote, plans for future armed protests have already begun proliferating on and off Twitter, including a proposed secondary attack on the U.S. Capitol and state Capitol buildings on January 17th. After the ban, the president tried to tweet from other campaign and staff accounts, triggering a game of whack-a-mole, with Twitter quickly taking down his posts. Many platforms have banned or restricted the president's accounts, including Facebook and Instagram, where he's blocked indefinitely and for at least the next 2 weeks.
It's a sad day when big tech has more power than big government, that they can censor the president of the United States.
Because Twitter is a private company, experts say the removal of the president for violating their rules is not a violation of the First Amendment.
Twitter is absolutely allowed to silence the president, as is any other social media platform that can make their own rules. Whether it's silencing him, of course it's not. He could call a press conference.
The ban, which many argue came too late, was also instigated in part by Twitter staffers pressuring executives to delete the president's account. One employee telling NBC News, "A lot of us are so happy and so proud to work for a company that did the right thing."
How big of a difference does all of this make to stopping or at least reducing the disinformation pipeline, all of the conspiracy theories and false information that's out there?
It doesn't really do much to take away that pipeline. What it does do is take away, a voice, at least on these platforms, to one of the most important voices of disinformation, which was the president.
And Joe joins us now. Joe, is there another social media app the president could jump to?
Yes, some of President Trump's allies say they are ditching Twitter and they're heading to smaller social networks like Parler, which is popular with right-wing extremists. But Google already making that a lot harder, suspending Parler from their app store, one of the largest in the world, until they address, quote, ongoing and urgent public safety threats. Jose?
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.